if I were the devil. So ridiculous. Yeah, okay, but here's what we're going to play along, okay? Here's the deal. If I were the devil, I would not make it my life's mission to just cause chaos in the world. See, instead, if I were the devil, I would make it my life's mission to get every person that I could to spend their life playing pretend. I mean, how maniacal would that be? I mean, like, think about that. If I could get a person to spend 60, 70, 80 years of their life pretending to be somebody that they were never meant to be, what a great way to ruin a person's life. Right? I mean, that's what I would try to do. I mean, so here's the deal. As followers of Jesus, if you're a follower of Jesus here, and if you're not a follower of Jesus, man, thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. It is so great to be here. A little insight into, as followers of Jesus, what we believe is that every human being, every person is loved by God. That every person on this planet has unsurpassable worth and value. Every person on this planet was worth Jesus dying for. That's when God sees you, when God sees any given person, that's what he sees. So if I were the devil, and it were my job to get you to not believe that was true about you, here's how I would do it. First, what I would do is I would slowly and subtly draw your attention to all the evil, all the hurt, all the hate that's going on in the world. Just every time you flip on the news, every time you scroll through your social media, I would make sure that your attention gets drawn to just all the ick in the world, all the stuff that kind of turns your stomach sour. And I would just do that over and over and over, day after day. And I would do this until eventually you just kind of grew callous towards it. Until now, whenever you see just another one of those awful stories, you just kind of go, oh, okay, and you just move on. Just another school shooting. Just another riot. Just another act of violence. And eventually, what I would do then is, once you've grown just a bit callous towards the evil in the world, then what I would do is I would shift just a little bit, and I would try to get you to now have to pick a side with any and every issue that you now see in the world. Anytime there's an issue that's brought up, I would want to make sure that you now pick a side, right? Because we know that there's a right side and a wrong side to everything, don't we? And I would make sure that you picked a side to every issue that you saw. And quite frankly, I don't care what side you pick. I just want to make sure that you have a long list of reasons why you're on the right side, why you're on the righteous side, so that anyone who disagrees with you, well, they're the enemy. They're what's wrong with this world, aren't they? And eventually, I'd want you to do this long enough to where you're so bent on picking sides, you're so bent on saying, I'm right and they're wrong, that eventually that same like hate and hurt that you felt with all those stories from the past, all that anger that you grew just so callous towards, that eventually what I'd want is all those feelings to now stir up every time you think about those people, right? Because they're the problem. They're what's evil in this world, right? They're the reason why there's so much bad in the world. Those people are the problem. They're the enemy. And eventually, perhaps in just a few short years, I could get you to not just believe, but justify why your hatred towards those people isn't just good, it's godly. Right? They deserve it because they're the problem. They're the enemy. And you would have traded your God-given identity as someone who is loved by Jesus, who has unsurpassable worth and value. You would have traded that identity for a pretty hate-filled, toxic identity instead. And now you start seeing people loved by God as your enemy. Pretty maniacal, isn't it? We're in this conversation called If God Asked. We've been spending the last couple weeks posing these questions, that if God asks you these questions, how would you answer them? And we've been asking these, and as we think about our answers, there's kind of this gap, right? There's our real answer to these questions and how we wish we could have answered this question. And our hope in this series, these 3 weeks, is that you could start to bridge that gap in how you're answering these questions, if God were to ask. Week 1, Mark came in, and he asked the question, he said, if God asked, will you let me love you? How would you answer that? Will you let me love you? And you see, one of the things Mark brought up is that so often we play pretend. We try to put on a face, a mask, right? We try to put on this pretend version of ourselves. And God doesn't love the pretend version of you. He loves the real you. So as long as we're playing pretend, it's going to be hard to identify God's love for us because he loves the real me. Last week, Sharon asked that second question. She said, if God asked, what will you do with your story? Right? Because every one of us, we live our lives, we have our stories to tell. What will you do with your story? But when we live that kind of pretend facade, right, we just put on the smiley face, we try to act a certain way or be a certain way. We look back and it's hard to find those moments that God was in our life because we were just playing pretend all along. And you see, the same thing can happen with the question that we're going to ask today. I'm going to ask the long version of this question, and then I'm going to shorten it so it's a little bit more memorable so we can remember what we're talking about here. But how would you answer this question? That if God asked, the question that we're going to ask today, if God asked you, do you see me in the people I've brought into your life? How would you answer that? Do you see me in the people I've brought into your life? I'll make it really simple for us. This is the question I'll have us ask. How would you answer the question, do you see me in others? If God were to ask you, do you see me in others? How would you answer that question? You see, like I said, as followers of Jesus, right, we believe that every person on the planet is loved by God. Every person on the planet has unsurpassable worth and value, that every person is someone who is worth Jesus dying for. That's what we believe about humanity, about people. And if we're honest, that's not always how we see certain people, is it? Right? We kind of see different people differently. And as I was pondering this question, do you see me in other people? I kind of had a couple thoughts. So the first was that it's not terribly hard for me to see Jesus in people who I really like. Right? Like that's not hard. It's not hard to see Jesus in people who like me and people who are like me. Like that's not super hard. So I didn't want to focus our day on that. And then I kind of took it a next layer out, and I was like, well, is it hard to see Jesus in just total strangers, people that I don't really know at all? And it's more hard for sure. It's more difficult to see Jesus in people you really don't know, but it's still not the hardest, right? We put a little bit of effort. That's not terribly hard. But then I got to thinking, who do I have the most trouble seeing Jesus in? And the answer was simple, right? Those people. And we all have those people, right? The people that we see as our enemy, the people who we just go, ugh, towards. And how would you answer if Jesus said, but do you see me even in them? That's what I want to focus our day on today. We're going to be in Ephesians chapter 6. We're going to start at verse 10. This is, if you grew up going to Sunday school, or maybe you've heard of this, it's the passage that leads into the armor of God. Okay, so if you're not familiar with it, don't worry about it. We're not going to be talking about that much today. We're just going to talk about what the leading in passage. So we're going to be in Ephesians chapter 6, starting at verse 10. And this is what it says. Talking to Jesus followers, it says, finally, be strong in the Lord and in his mighty power. Put on the full armor of God so that you can take your stand against the devil's schemes. Because the devil schemes. And what does it look like to stand against those schemes? But I like how this starts. It says finally, be strong in the Lord. Be strong in the Lord. Don't wait to be strong. Don't just hope that it happens. Own it. Be strong in the Lord. You see, when you become a follower of Jesus, when you surrender your life to Jesus, what happens is he gives you a brand new identity, that you become a new person through and through. And so much of the journey of following Jesus is coming into alignment with who God has already declared you to be. And part of who you are is strong. So be strong in his mighty power. In God's mighty power, this strength of God, the power of God lives within you. That same power that healed the sick, that same power that raised the dead, the same power that conquered sin and death lives within you. That's part of who you are. Be strong in his mighty power. And if that's part of who we are, it makes me wonder why so many of us live as though we are so powerless. Why is it that so many of us, we live so fragile and easily offended when we're chosen to be strong? And I think there's a lot of reasons why we choose to live that way, but I think one big reason for that is because rather than being strong and standing against the devil's schemes, we stand against the wrong things. And instead, we fall for the devil's schemes. When I was young, when I was in third grade, I started playing basketball, and I was awful. I was really bad at basketball. I played basketball for 6 years. Not exaggerating. I think the most points I ever scored was 6 points in any game. I was terrible at basketball. I was not good, at least not at offense. I was really good on defense. I was short. I was fast. I could steal the ball. But then, that's why they kept me on the team, is because of my defensive skills. But my offensive skills were atrocious. They were so bad. But I kept playing, and by the time I got to sixth grade, I joined the traveling basketball team. And so then I had kids from different places and area join my team. And there's one kid on my team, John, who was at that time the best basketball player I'd ever seen, and he was on my team. I mean, this was a kid who could stand behind the three-point line as a sixth grader and just drop them every time, like Allen Iverson. I mean, he couldn't miss. He was so good, and he was an absolute jerk. John, he was so rude. He was so arrogant, and kind of rightfully so. I mean, he was that good, but he just made sure you knew it at every moment of every game. And not only that, he didn't just brag about himself all the time. For me, like I said, I was really good at defense, so I could steal the ball. I was really fast. I would dribble, but I was notoriously known for fast break, brick off the backboard. That was who I was. And so John would every game let me know how bad of a basketball player that I was. I would run down the court, I'd miss a shot, and he would get in my face. What are you doing? It's a layup. How can you miss that? He was such a jerk. And this went on for 2 years. He was on my basketball team. I hated John. To me, John was my enemy. Do you have people in your life that are like that? People that you think about them and they just kind of turn your stomach a little bit. Just the thought of that person is ugh. I mean, we all have people like that, right? I mean, there are just some people on this planet that are not good people. And yet, even they are not your enemy. There's the Beatitudes, which is a famous start to this lead-in of Jesus' Sermon on the Mount. If you've heard of the Sermon on the Mount, it's this series of sermons, these series of teachings that Jesus taught. In fact, if you are not familiar with the Bible, if you don't follow Jesus, I'm sure you know some of the teachings of Jesus on the Sermon on the Mount. One of the things that Jesus teaches that is one of the most famous things that Jesus teaches is to love your enemies. Do you remember this? Love your enemies. In Matthew chapter 5, Jesus tells us to love our enemies. But at least in my experience, what I've seen in this, especially as Christians, is we hear this, and what we subconsciously then think is, okay, so Jesus is giving me permission to have enemies. I just need to love them anyways. And that is completely antithetical to who Jesus was. right? I mean, never did Jesus position another human being as his enemy. Never. Jesus isn't saying, go ahead and have a bunch of enemies, but you better love them. That's not what he's saying. What Jesus is trying to get us to understand is that, like, listen, when you choose to follow him, when you choose to live the kind of life that he calls you to live, people are going to look at you and say, you're my enemy now because of how you choose to live. That you're going to have people that when they see you, they're going to see their enemy. And Jesus says, love them anyways. Love your enemy. You see, you and I, we were called to be in community. Like, we're created, we're designed to need one another, to encourage each other. We are designed to work together to bring about good in the world. Like, we need each other. But as long as we find reasons to justify why they are the enemy and we are the good guys, we'll never fully live into that new identity, that unsurpassable worth, an unsurpassable value, that loved by God identity. And we'll never be able to see those people with that identity too. And yet we fall for this all the time, don't we? I mean, think about it. I mean, let's be honest. As Americans, every 2 to 4 years, election season rolls around. And what do? Well, you better pick a side. You better pick a side. And if you don't pick a side, then you're what's wrong with the world, right? You're the enemy. But whatever side you pick, right? The other side, they're evil. They don't love people. They don't care about people. They're what's wrong with the world. They're who I need to fight against, right? You better pick a side. And we fall for it. Every 2 years, every 4 years, we fall for this. We look at our classmates at school. We look at our coworkers in our offices. We look at our neighbors. And we see those people, the ones who think that they're so smart and they make everyone else feel so dumb. They walk around like they're the prettiest person in the room. Gosh, they're so obnoxious, right? They're the enemy. And we fall for the devil's schemes. We fall for this. And instead of seeing people as loved by God, created with purpose and intention, created with unsurpassable worth and value, right? Instead of seeing people as someone worth Jesus dying for, we look at them and say, that's my enemy. You see, instead of seeing people as our enemy, we need to start seeing people as simply in process, just like you and me. John on my basketball team, he was the worst. I hated John. I mean, it was 2 years of just being miserable with him on my team. I mean, he always just pointed out all of my flaws, and he didn't just do it to me, he did it to my whole team. I hated John, and I didn't understand why he was the way he was until I met his dad. Because his dad would come to these games, and he'd sit in the bleachers, and he was just like John, but just on a whole nother level. I mean, he would sit in the bleachers and just scream at his son. If he stepped with the wrong foot, you'd hear him yell about it from the bleachers. That the coach would call a timeout, and the team would huddle up, and his dad would come and pull his kid out of the huddle and just scream at him. They're in the middle of a game. After every game, he'd pull his kid aside, get right in his face, and point out every mistake that he made in front of all the parents. And he didn't care who heard it. You see, John wasn't my enemy. He was just a kid doing what he saw his dad doing. He was in process. In high school, I knew of a kid, Carl, who was like the classic, like, party on the weekends, do drugs, get drunk as often as you can, sleep around with as many people. Eventually, like, he was the kind of kid that, he would break into cars, break into homes, and steal things. He was in and out of juvie at the time, and I never understood why somebody would choose to live that way. I knew Carl, but not terribly well until a few years after high school. I got to connect with him a little bit. We became, friends of sorts, and And I was sitting around Carl one evening. It was just he and I and a couple buddies, and they'd been drinking more than they should have been, and it was just me and him. And he starts just opening up and sharing with me about how in 7th grade he was at a playground and was molested. And he shared that with his friends at the time. And instead of being there for him, his friends went and told the rest of the school. And then the school used that experience to weaponize against Carl and make sure he knew that that was laughable, that he was a joke now. And his friends left him. See, I never understood why he would choose to live that way until I understood that he was just trying to numb this pain that he was carrying around with him. He was in process. He wasn't anyone's enemy. You see, every time I've seen someone as my enemy, for every person I've seen like that, there's a story to explain why they are the way that they are. I mean, nobody just wakes up one morning and decides to be a crappy person, right? That's not how it is. Like they were taught something that wasn't true, and now they're just acting out. They're in process. See, I believe so much that this is why Jesus was the way that he was. I mean, Jesus, no matter how bad or evil or messed up a person was, he never positioned them as his enemy. He positioned them as someone that he loved, as someone worth dying for. And that's how you and I are called to live as well. You see, when you choose to follow Jesus, you let go of your right to make enemies out of people. Do you see me in others? Do you see me in those people? You see, when we can start to see even our enemies as people who are loved by God, as people who have unsurpassable worth and value, when we can see even them the way that Jesus sees them. Now what happens is that when people say or do just really awful things, you stop feeling rage and hatred, and you start feeling compassion and understanding that they're just in process. They aren't your enemy. You see, when we stop seeing people as our enemies, we stop belittling people and being rageful at other people, and we start to actually care about them the way that Jesus cares about them. That's what we're called to do. That's how we're called to live. Do you see me in others? As we close, what I want to do is, I understand that what we're talking about today is one of those things that I know for me is man, this is one of those daily reminder things. It's not like hey, I learned this one day and now everything changed. This is like a process, right? Because we're in process, every one of us. And so what I want to do is just an exercise is to just invite you into something that has been really helpful to me. Is I want to lead us in a kind of prayer that I simply call imaginative prayer. It's just using your imagination as you pray. It's very simple. You can call it a number of other things, but to me, I like that. We're going to use our imaginations, and I want to lead us in a prayer that I hope is helpful to you in starting this process of seeing even those people as someone loved by God. So if you would, whatever makes you comfortable, whatever kind of helps you to use your imagination, I want you to just get into that space. If it's helpful to close your eyes, you can do that. And I just simply want to lead us in an imaginative prayer. Before we do, let me just pray and ask Jesus to be with us as we do this. Jesus, thank you for the imaginations that you give us. We want our hearts to be like yours. So would you meet us in this moment and help us to imagine and see and hear what you need us to imagine and see and hear. With your eyes closed, I want you to, just as best you can in your imagination, I want you to picture Jesus about 15 feet in front of you. And don't get all caught up in the theologically, what does Jesus look like? Ignore that, okay? Just whatever Jesus needs to look like for you, that's what he's going to look like. Imagine Jesus about 15 feet in front of you. And he's standing there, and next to him is that person, or perhaps those people, the ones that make you so angry. And they're standing next to Jesus. I want you to imagine what they're wearing. I want you to imagine their face. I want you to imagine the color of their hair. And I'm going to ask you to do something bold. I want you to imagine yourself walking up to that person. And remember, Jesus is standing right there. You're not doing this alone. He's right there with you. I want you to walk up to that person. I want you to look them in the eye. And just in your imagination, I want you to picture yourself telling them, "You are not my enemy. You have unsurpassable worth and value. You are loved by God. And I'm going to start loving you like that too." You can open your eyes. It's simple. But man, is it powerful. When we can stop positioning people as our enemy and start positioning people as those who are loved by God, as people who are worth Jesus dying for. I do this kind of prayer sometimes, even when I'm just like walking down Target or like, down the street somewhere, and I walk by strangers. I'll just practice this. I don't know this person from Adam, but I'll just say in my mind, like not out loud because that'd be weird, but listen, you're not my enemy. Like, you're loved by God. You have unsurpassable worth and value. Lord, help me to love even that person. It's something you can do. It's something you can practice. To start aligning your heart with His, so that your heart and your words and your thoughts and your actions can start looking like His, and that you can become who Jesus has already made you to be. I want to close in prayer, but as we do, there's one other piece that as I was just praying through the message today that I wanted to just say, is that I think it's not hard for us to understand, like we position people as our enemies, we do this. But I'd be willing to bet that there's at least one or two of you that when you imagine that relationship between you and God, or maybe the lack of relationship between you and God, that you've always pictured yourself as God's enemy. That when God sees you, He sees His enemy. I simply just want to tell you that that's not true. And if that's you, I want you to know you are loved by God. He loves you. That when He sees you, He sees a person with unsurpassable worth and value. That when He sees you, He sees someone that goes, yeah, they were worth me dying for. God loves you. My hope, my prayer is that you would receive that today. That He wants to begin a relationship with you. That you are not His enemy. He wants to encourage you. He wants to love on you. He wants you to know that He created you to be someone beautiful, because you are. That you are strong in His mighty power. This is who you are. And it's who He invites you to be. So would you pray with me? Jesus, would you continue to do a work in my heart for the people who make me angry, the people who turn my heart sour, the people who just bring up those feelings of hatred that I don't like, but they're there. Jesus, would you transform us to become more like you? Would you help us to see you even in those people in our life? Remind us to pray for them. Lord, today would you do a work in our hearts? And Lord, thank you that we are not your enemy, that you love us deeply. Lord, all of who we are is only because of who you are. Help us to walk as people made in your image. Jesus, in your name. Amen.